insisted he stand up so we could sing happy birthday to him and embarrass him. And I was afraid he wouldn't come back, but he did. Look at that. Look at that. And we did have a first-time visitor this morning, didn't we? She just didn't introduce herself. Your daughter came, didn't she? Yes. Yes. Alicia and Mark brought their daughter. Glad to meet you, although you didn't own up to being a first-time visitor. We would never embarrass you. Never. We wouldn't call you out. Thanks for being here. I think you'll enjoy it. We have some great people here, and everybody has something to offer. Everybody. You know, we were talking in the class this morning that Steve Janke offers this little class, and it's a discussion group. And we were talking about how much information is out there. And boy, you can just collect information all day long. Read books, do this, that, and the other. But if you really want to become aware, you have to allow that information to become knowledge at some point, and then live that for a while and allow that to become wisdom and discernment. And so as you process all this information out there, some of it's going to feel right to you and some isn't. But as you are discerning, I would ask you to look at your own biases too. What information am I biased toward or against? And the faster we do that, we can become more aware, wiser. We can actually stop being triggered by some of that information that's out there. And as Bob says, you might be right. Bob Brandhorst in his words of wisdom, you might be right. And then really mean it. And then walk away and let them have their rightness. And you walk away and become wiser with every choice that you make. But actually, that's not what I was going to talk about this morning. I'm going to get on the subject here of being in search of diamonds. And as I went through the week and thought about it and processed this topic, I was thinking, well, you know, the truth is, Jesus said the kingdom is within, and that is true. The kingdom is within. And so if we are in search of diamonds, we are going to find the greatest jewels within. And what we're really doing is uncovering diamonds, is what we're doing. Not necessarily discovering them, but we are uncovering them. You've had it all the time. You've had all you need all the time. You just weren't aware of it. So we're going to uncover some of those diamonds. James Allen said, "Only by much searching and mining are gold and diamonds obtained." And it's the same with our lives, you know. My husband was watching that channel. I think it comes on the Weather Channel, and it's a program of big equipment up in Alaska. And this particular version of it, it's a family that owns some property, and they're searching for jade, as it turned out. And they had some huge amounts of jade that were uncovered. But I don't know what I was thinking. I said, well, those people up in Alaska, they were talking about how valuable it was going to be when they found it. And I said, well, they don't need $500 million, do they? Of course, they wouldn't end up with that. They had so many investors. That was the only way they could afford to do it. But he said, well, you might not think so, but it's expensive living up there in Alaska. I didn't know that. I had no idea. But the truth is, what they were searching for was a way to make their lives better so that they could have resources for themselves and others and their neighbors. But it was a pretty fascinating program at that. I was doing what I always do, and I've always done this, always. I flit through the house, and I'm always going from one place to another, and I won't sit down long enough to watch a program. So what does that mean? That means that I'll sit down for a moment and I'll ask him what's happened. So he gets to summarize it for me. And I think over the years he's grown a bit tired of that. Just a little weary. He's mentioned it now and then. Why don't you sit down and watch it? But then that would be way too much work. I do like flitting around and then just have him give me a summary. Thank you, Dan. So gold and diamonds are found by deep mining. So it is with us. We must mine for the gold, the diamonds, and the silver, searching for the truth of who we are. Now, last week I had a great story that I was telling about Apollo Ono. Does everyone know who he is? The great speed skater, ice skater. And he wrote a book titled Hard Pivots. And it's a great book. And if you have more patience than me, you won't just skip around, you'll read the whole thing. That's the way I read books too. But I was so touched by a couple of things that he said in the book, and in an interview where he was interviewed about it. And he said that a hard pivot, that we all come to them in our lives, and it's when we come to a place we hardly know what to do or where to turn. And not only on the skating course where you take a hard pivot, you're getting one leg up, the other down, then you swing your body around the other direction. And then he was just describing how difficult a hard pivot is. And we know that we do go through those in our lives, don't we? We lose a partner, lose a job, lose a child. Partner wants divorce. All of a sudden, you don't know. You don't have any idea where you're going to turn. And I've seen people taking those hard pivots, those hard turns. They're extremely difficult. I've seen people take those hard turns and they don't know where they're going to get their next breath. But they do. And they do what he suggested in his book, and that is you take one step at a time and you put all your energy behind what's going to throw you forward and bring you to that next step. But here was something else that he said that was so touching, and I wanted to share it with you. He said that he was asked, in your first Olympics, there was a devastating collision that occurred less than 100 feet from the finish line, and despite leading the pack the entire race, you crashed Then you lunged across the finish line and you won the silver. When a reporter asked you, what was it like to lose the gold? You responded, I did not lose the gold, I won the silver. How has this attitude helped you? How can you take the rest of your life, that incredible view, when you don't get what you wanted? Happens to us a lot, doesn't it? Do we ever say, I won the silver, instead of saying, I lost the gold? Well, what he said was this. He said to embrace the outcome and find some silver lining. He went on to say, look at what it showed me. I'm going to go ahead and celebrate the silver just as if it were gold. And that's actually what we have to do in life, isn't it? And what that starts with is gratitude. Gratitude. You have to be thankful for what you have. I remember reading a story about a young lady who wanted to study prosperity principles and how she could bring more into her life. She said, how do I do that when I have absolutely nothing? Nothing. I have nothing. Well, her teacher said, you've got to have something. Be thankful for that. And so she started. She started being grateful for this can of soup that she had. She was grateful for that. And then the next thing you know, she had something else to be grateful for. And on it went till she got the job she wanted. She was making the income that could provide for her a way of life that was comfortable and not worrisome. So we all start out with gratitude. I have another story, and many of you may have already heard it. It's the story Acres of Diamonds. And maybe one of the most interesting people that lived in the 19th century was a man by the name of Russell Herman Conwell. He was born in 1843 and lived until 1925. He was a lawyer for about 15 years until he became a minister. One day, a young man went to him and told him he wanted to go to college, but he couldn't swing it financially. Dr. Conwell decided at that moment what his aim in life would be. Besides being a man of cloth, that is, he decided to build a university for the unfortunate, for the deserving students. He did have a challenge, however. He would need a few $1 million to build that university. And he didn't have a few $1 million. He didn't even have one. And for Dr. Conwell and anyone with real purpose in life, nothing could stand in the way of his goal. He was tremendously intrigued by a true story with its ageless moral. The true story was about a farmer who lived in South Africa and through a visitor became tremendously excited about looking for diamonds. Diamonds were already discovered in abundance over the African continent, and this farmer got so excited about the idea of millions of dollars worth of diamonds that he sold his farm to head out to the diamond line. He wandered all over the continent. As the years slipped by, constantly searching for diamonds, wealth which he never found. Eventually, He went completely broke and threw himself into a river and drowned. Meanwhile, the new owner of his farm, you guessed it, picked up an unusual-looking rock about the size of a country egg and put it on the mantle as sort of curiosity. A visitor stopped by and, in viewing the rock, practically went into convulsions. He said, "Do you know what you have there? You have one of the biggest diamonds I've ever seen." So this funny-looking rock on his mantle was worth millions of dollars. Can you imagine? And we often wonder how often we do that in our own lives. We spend so much time searching for something else out there. Always searching, when there may just be a funny-looking rock sitting on our mantle. Now, I know I need to stop right here and explain something. But you might say, but now, wait a minute, didn't a couple of weeks ago you tell us just to go out and search for what it is we're wanting, to be bold, to go out and find it? Yes, I want you to do that in life. I want you to do what your heart leads you to do. But what did we say earlier? The kingdom is within. Find that first. Find that kingdom first. Find who you truly are. And then you'll be led to those diamonds, whether they're right under your feet or in the next continent, you'll know. But if you're aimlessly searching without having found the peace within, the peace that the Master Jesus taught when he was here on earth, he said, you have the light of God within you. You can do what I do. And we somehow have forgotten that. Anyway, that one farm that I was referring to turned out to be the Kimberley Diamond Mine, the richest the world has ever known. He was standing on acres of diamonds and didn't even know it. So Dr. Conwell learned from the story of the farmer and continued to teach its morals. Each of us is right in the middle of our own acres of diamonds. And over the years, Dr. Conwell told this story many, many times. He attracted many audiences. He told the story long enough to have raised the money to start the college for underprivileged, deserving students. He raised nearly $6 million. And the university he founded, Temple University in Philadelphia, has at least 10 degree-granting colleges and 6 other schools. He was on his acres of diamonds, and he knew it. He knew it, but he first had to go within and find that kingdom where those type decisions can be made. And like Apollo Ono and the farmer, many times changing our minds allows us to pivot and find the blessings in disguise. And I have another little story here that once upon a time, in a tropical land, there lived a king who had an optimistic advisor. Well, this lieutenant was so positive, in fact, that the king was often annoyed by his practice of constantly finding good in everything. One day, while the king and the lieutenant were on a journey through the jungle, the king was chopping a fresh coconut for breakfast, and his machete slipped, and he chopped off his big toe. Well, the aching monarch limped to show his misfortune to the lieutenant, who exclaimed, "That's wonderful." "What did you say?" asked the king. "This is a real blessing." Hearing the response, the king became very angry. He felt like this man was obviously poking fun at him and his mishap. "Take it from me," the lieutenant extorted, "behind this apparent accident there is some good to come." That was the last straw. Furious, the king picked up the lieutenant and hurled him into a dry well. Then he set out to find his way back to the castle. En route, the king was apprehended by a band of headhunters who decided that he would make an excellent meal. So they've been looking for a sacrifice for this month's offering to the volcano. So they took him to the tribal priest, who prepared him for this dubious honor. And as the holy man was anointing the reluctant sacrifice, he noticed that the king was missing a toe. Not perfect after all, it turns out. "I'm sorry," he informed the king. "We can't use you. The volcano gods only accept perfect specimen. Full-bodied sacrifices. You are free to go." So overjoyed, the king hobbled out of the tribal camp. Suddenly it dawned upon him that the lieutenant had been correct. There was indeed a hidden blessing behind this seeming misfortune. As quickly as he could, he found his way back to the well where he'd thrown the lieutenant. And to the ruler's delight, his companion was still sitting in the well. He was whistling happily, of course, because, he saw there would be a good outcome to this. He knew that. The king offered the lieutenant a hand, pulled him out of the well, and apologized profusely. "I'm terribly sorry I threw you in there," he confessed. And he dusted his visor's shoulders. "I was taken prisoner by some wild natives who were about to cast me into the volcano. But when they saw my toe was missing, they let me go." "It was actually a miracle which you foretold, and I so thoughtlessly threw you into this pit. Can you ever forgive me?" he said. "No apology necessary," replied the lieutenant. "It was also a blessing that you left me in the well." "Now, how are you going to make something positive out of that?" asked the king. "Because," the lieutenant explained, "if I had been with you, they would have taken me for the sacrifice." And indeed they would have. How many times in our own lives have we had some mishap that turned out to be a blessing in disguise? As we're looking for those diamonds, all we need to do is uncover them as it turns out, we had it all the time. We were there all the time. Everything we needed was right there. The people that don't have confidence in themselves, guess what? They could have. The people that don't see a future, they could have. And the people that never saw a new life for themselves, after a loss, after a hard pivot, after the worst thing in the world that they ever could have imagined has occurred, they could have. Eventually, all who walk the road to higher knowing come to one realization: I had it all the time. All the time. All the time I had it. Those who give up addictions, what do they find out? Whatever method they use to overcome their addiction. All the time they had it within themselves to pull through. Not some guru, some mountaintop legend, not even some special diamond, gold, or jade. The diamonds that we are seeking are right here in the heart. We begin with gratitude, being thankful for what we already have. And I understand that after a loss, it takes some time to be able to get to the point where you can be grateful for the years that you had with your loved ones. I understand that. Sometimes it doesn't come easily. We all do come to those hard times. But we do need to remember that we had it all the time, whatever it was that we needed to pull through to make our lives better, to make our lives more prosperous, and whatever terms you want to use for prosperity, whether that's riches, relationships, or a higher purpose, whatever that is, when we come to realize that the kingdom is within and all the answers lay there, we will find whatever it is we're looking for. Whenever we want peace of heart and mind, we need to realize that too, because that's the real gold and diamonds that we're looking for in life, isn't it? It's just peace of heart and mind. It's peace of heart and mind. And we recognize that we find it within. There is no other place. Now this morning, I'm going to wish you a wonderful Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much for being here with us and celebrating this Palm Sunday with us right here at Unity of Gulfport. Thank you for your time.